CCR, Proud Mary, 8:59 on the clock, and I've just come out of reading this fascinating work of fiction, though I suspect there are more than a fair share of traces of reality in it. The phenomenal Karan Anshuman, writer, filmmaker, movie critic. He dons many hats. For those of you who are not driving, statutory warning: if you're in the backseat of a chauffeur-driven car, or you're the backseat of a radio taxi, and you're sitting at home or at the office, then we're streaming live video on www.facebook.com/radio1.mum. That's radio1.mum on Facebook. Otherwise, we're streaming audio live across the nation on www.onecast.in. That's numeral 1cast.in. And the familiar, which is 94.3 on your FM radio sets. Karan Anshuman is in studio, and chat with him.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Very good. Good to be back.
Well, I have to say this. I know this has been a long time coming, man, but I wanted to do this the right way. I needed to read this book cover to cover, and you will see during the course of this hour why I took my time. So, I want to start off. This is not going to be so much about this story, because we want to have people go out there and pick up the book.
Yeah, it's a
thriller. It's a thriller, but more about the making of it. And to me, it's very, very fascinating when I see the detailing on three fronts. One is the detailing from the NSG Guards front. One is the detailing from the reportage front, and one is the detailing from the politics and the army front. So I imagine kilos of research has gone into this. Let's start with the NSG aspect. So, did you manage to find former NSG guards? What was the source of your material?
Former and current. So I spoke to both of them. I was a little circumspect because this was a slightly controversial topic, so I didn't want to really get into what I was doing, and it was just more like a what's your day like kind of conversation that I had with them, without sort of giving them too much to go on in terms of what I was up to. I just told them I was a filmmaker and just basic research, that kind of thing. And I think film in India is pretty safe. So it's, the kind of non-controversies that turn into controversies. However, publishing affords us a lot more leeway in terms of how in terms of how much more we can say and rake up interesting issues that you wouldn't be able to in a film otherwise. And so that's what I think sort of had them open up a little bit and tell me what. But, I was really not interested in so much in terms of the secret missions and things, because that's something I was creating anyway, but really the procedurals and how they go about their training and things like that. So got to speak to a couple of them, and there's whatever books were available, and of course the internet.
And Karan, it does come as a surprise to a lot of people that you would always think traditionally that the Indian NSG weren't as highly refined and trained as their Western counterparts. And far from the truth, a lot of them have undergone Israeli training, under the Mossad or wherever that might be. And we really need to start giving them that due. And most of it, I imagine, happened after 26/11.
Yeah, I think the idea of putting the NSG together was something that was around for a while. It really kicked in after the 26/11. They were really reduced to a role of bodyguards of VVIPs and other such people, and their weapons and armor and all of that was hopelessly out of date. And these were the issues that they were grappling with before 26/11, and that changed somewhat, but there's still a lot of it stuck in red tape, and they haven't really been able to recover and become the world-class guys that they really need to be. So a lot of stuff that I've written in is actually fictionalized, and we've given an impression that they're really there. But it also kind of depends on the individuals who are part of it, and a lot of the character that comes in is who you are and what you make of the means that you have to become a world-class soldier.
It's called Kashmirnama by Karan Anshuman, and it's on all on ground as well as online stores. Go and buy it. An absolute breezy read. It's a thriller. And the other end of the spectrum, of course, is the print media and the electronic media, which you've delved in, again, with consummate ease, which must have been a lot easier for you to do. I mean, because that's the world you live in predominantly, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, the thing with the media in mainstream pop culture stuff that we produce, I feel that there's a lot of glorification. There's a lot of we are so great and we're doing the right thing. And if you see journalists in films, they're always like this cool chick who's sort of on the ball and getting the right story and going to places where she hasn't been. And so I took that stereotype, that trope, and but I flipped it around in a big way, which you will find out if you read it, where a lot of other things are sort of driving journalism today, where it's about getting there first rather than and about the quality reporting, and also about one-upmanship, about winning awards and things like that. So it's not so much more about reporting these days, I feel, and so I sort of try to explore that from a character who's really to get ahead.
Yeah, this is Aditi Shenoy, the reporter that he's talking about. It's one of the principal protagonists in his novel, and she would really go to no extent, to a large extent, or no extent is no for her, at least to break the story. So we're going to do some Chorus, Breathless, and come back in a couple of minutes with Karan Anshuman and talk Kashmirnama. From Ireland comes a band called the Chorus 909. Big admirer of Karan Anshuman's work, the writer, filmmaker, movie critic, is here in studio. Kashmirnama. The novel is out, and it's an absolutely edge-of-the-seat thriller. And he is in studio with me. We're live audio across the nation on www.onecast.in. That's numeral 1cast.in. Live on your radio sets in Mumbai City 94.3, and only if you're not driving. Now we're going Facebook Live on facebook.com/HRISHIKY. That's HRISHIKY on Facebook. More chat.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Kashmir per se, I mean, who in his right mind is not interested in the Kashmir imbroglio? But you've approached it from a very, very unique perspective, in that there is the perspective of the outsider, there is the perspective of the patriot, there is also the perspective of the locals, which is, like a goat herd, which is Javed. And everything that Javed does for the preservation of his child, without giving too much of the story away. Kashmir history, does it fascinate you, or is it only for the purpose of the book? Talk me through that.
Well, Kashmir is one of the burning issues of the world, if not just of our subcontinent, and I feel that it's got so many perspectives weighing in that are so relevant at all times, that it was important to present all of them in as balanced a manner as possible. And I've tried to do that from different points of view, whether it was the local Muslim goat herd, or whether it's like a soldier, and the journeys they sort of go through that transform them, so changes their thinking about from where they're coming, and kind of gives them, it opens up perspectives on Kashmir through the characters. And that's what I'm hoping to do with the readers too, in a way, where I feel that a lot of Indians today have a certain point of view on Kashmir, and they sort of cling on to it without really knowing enough about its history, about its culture, and perhaps not all of them have gotten a chance to travel and have a close look at the state, at the problem firsthand. And it's really an eye-opening experience, and that's the sort of journey I went through too during research when I went to Kashmir, and with all the trips that I made. It's just the more people you meet and the more sort of interactions that you have, and get a sense of, and it's not just the locals, or the people who are constantly looking out to make a living from day to day, but even the higher ups, or the guys who are actually running the state, or the politicians, or soldiers, or people who are in a position to sort of have a say have a stake in the future of the state. And it's really those people who shape Kashmir's future. And for me, it was really an eye-opening sort of journey, where I guess I too sort of changed my mind about what I felt about Kashmir. And as far as the history of Kashmir goes, I mean, it's got a fascinating checkered history, which starts off, the recorded in recorded times, say from the 13th century onwards, and you had great rulers in Kashmir like Badshah, who have sort of held aloft the standard of the state for in greatness for a long time. And it's only now, in the last 50 years that we have really seen it sort of going downhill, so to speak, especially since 89 when all the trouble started.
But, bro, what is fascinating for me is the fact that you've gone into such great detailing. This book is about the detailing for me. It might not be about you, because they always say that the reader takes away an entirely different perspective sometimes from what the author gives or wishes to project. And the fact that cross-border infiltration is such a massive problem, especially on the Indian side, because of terrorists being squeezed through and this and that. And you've actually gone into great detail on how this cross-border infiltration happens and what points they happen at. And I mean, I didn't know till I read this book about the sophisticated level of border security we had. For example, with all the thermal imaging and the landmines in between and things like that. So few trips to the border, or that again was research that you did online or on books otherwise?
No, I did go to the border. I mean, in fact, this particular trip that we did, I was with a friend, Amay, and he and I sort of, had to stand in lines, get permissions, and we did manage it, and it was not that difficult actually. So you can actually make it to the border. You may not be able to see the fence, but we saw some pretty sensitive things that I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about. That which if you try hard enough, any civilian can get to, and that was interesting for me.
And this is not just Wagah. Did you take a walk along the fence?
No, not at all Wagah.
Not at all Wagah, yeah.
Kashmir. Wagah is just like, it's a show.
Yeah.
It's something that...
the changing of the guard, yeah.
Yeah,
I've actually seen it at Firozpur, and it's really a show. That's the right way to describe it. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not meant for someone.
They make eyeball to eyeball contact, and then they let out these yelps and things like that. It's a war of words, so to say.
Yeah, it's for the ultra patriots. It's just one point of view. It's not something that you really. I mean, I didn't enjoy any of that at all. I mean, there's no requirement for that. There was a proposal from Pakistan side to discontinue it for some reason. We just want to keep at it, and it's just a waste of time and money.
So this is the actual Kashmir border that you're talking about.
Yeah. This is further down from Uri. There's this hydroelectric plant, and it's really interesting views and things. You can actually see it on Google Maps. That's how I started looking at it, and then we sort of made our way there.
Lovely. It's Kashmirnama, his book. It's out in stores, online as well as on ground. Go get it. You're not going to hear us for the next 5 to 7 minutes because we're going into some messages. You have any questions or comments, I'm happy to read it out on air. I already saw some comments on Facebook which I will read out. So space your comment or your question and name to 53650. 53650 is the in-studio SMS line. On Twitter as well as Facebook, you go to the search bar, you type HRISHIKAY. It will pop up. You could tweet out or post on the timeline inbox and facebook.com/radio1.mum. Our official page. We've also tagged Karan Anshuman on all our Facebook lives, so you can go on to his page. You can drop a comment in the timeline inbox, and I'm happy to read it out on air. It's 9:15, messages and back.
94.3 Radio 1.
Quite masochistic. Love to see you cry, but it's not only lyrically so. It's actually a great song, great pop ditty. Enrique Iglesias, and like I say, Luis Fonsi really is the Enrique Iglesias of this time, considering Despacito and all these hits are making it big for him. In studio is Karan Anshuman, this fabulous book, which I thoroughly enjoyed, called Kashmirnama. Farhan Akhtar says, keeps you riveted till the final page. And the big question is, what is the price of paradise? And Karan is a writer, filmmaker, movie critic. He's in studio. For those of you who are not driving, like I always say, statutory warning, we're now streaming live on Twitter and Periscope at HRISHIKAY, and we've tagged Karan's Twitter handle. More conversation on the book.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
What has been extremely worrying for us as a nation, and everybody worries about this, is this peculiar nexus between politicians and arms dealers, and in particular the Defense Ministry, and India's obsession with Bofors and all the scams that have happened through the sands of time cannot be negated. And it's interesting that you would bring a bit of that in Kashmirnama, and that to me is of great interest because it just gave another dimension to the story. we all were very little, perhaps kids, when all these scandals exploded and things like that. So, keeping your eye on the news for that, yeah, has that always intrigued you?
Well, I was sort of hanging out with this arms dealer in Delhi for a while, and
Wow.
sort of going with him to some of his meetings and some of his parties and things, and it was really a very different world that sort of opened up to me, and the kind of dealings that were going on. A lot of that has actually made it in the book. I think arms is sort of the golden goose, so to speak, or the goose that sort of
Lays
the
golden eggs, yeah.
because there's so much money there to be made, and you could argue that all the wars in the world today are fought because it's in the interest of politicians to keep war going, because there's so much money to be made out of arms. It's a lesson that we learned in the Second World War, and I don't think the situation is all that very different in India too. And Kashmir being the flashpoint it is, there's so much there for the taking, so to speak, and given a history of with corruption and the way we sort of operate politically, it was certainly an angle that was really worth exploring. And a lot of that is speculation, of course. It's not really based on anything much except hearsay or second-hand accounts. But I just felt that made for a very compelling point of view that could apply to Kashmir.
And in a sense, it's in a bizarre way, all of these aspects of Kashmir's existence as a state or as a region is all interlinked, and all these lives are interlinked in a strange sort of way. Because if you look at the terrorist programs and the terrorist leader, he uses a pragmatic, rational approach to speak to a potential suicide bomber. At the other end of the spectrum, and he's got his own reasons for doing what he has to do, without giving too much of the story away. Then there's a reporter who has her own reasons. The NSG guard who has his own reason, and of course the politician and even the chief of staff of the army who has his own reason, and all of them are linked in a peculiar way to Kashmir. Is that why it's called Kashmirnama? So give me the title. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I guess the title comes from the fact that it's a story. It's a story of different stories to do with Kashmir. Like you said, the idea was to take stereotypes and flip them on their head. And so when you have an extremist sort of Islamic leader trying to brainwash his protege, he takes a more rational approach. It's not something that you would see coming, right? Where there's a lot of reason and there's a lot of logic in what he's saying, and it's hard to sort of try and argue. At least you can, I tried to make it hard to argue. Meanwhile, the army brass is so full of themselves, so extreme, in their patriotism, that they're almost blinded by it. And then, of course, there's the politicians who are sort of driven, by the things that politicians are always driven by. Except that, of course, there's a guy who's a knight in shining armor amongst them who could be the sort of savior, so to speak. So, taking the stereotypes and sort of messing with them, that's always been fun for me to do.
And in between there's an agent gone rogue, which took me back to my First Blood and Stallone days, when you grew up watching that kind of cinema. It's always wonderful. So, man, where is the writing other than this? Are you still writing some reviews, or you've given that up, or is it just writing cinema and screenplay now? What is your priority? What does Karan Anshuman think? I mean, other than direction. Are you going to be a full-fledged writer now? Because I think this is a fascinating book.
I would give anything to be a full-fledged writer. Writing for me is bigger than filmmaking. Like, I was far more excited with Kashmirnama coming out, as opposed to, like, say, the release of my first film. I guess if you're really reading from a young age, like you have also been, it's just something that I think it's in you, that you want to see your book, published and out there in a bookstore. So this was a really big moment for me, and I'd love to sort of continue this. Unfortunately, publishing in India is not mature enough to sort of afford entire careers, except for a handful of people, and I think it's still some time to get there. But I will keep at it. In the meantime, no, I'm not writing reviews anymore, because once you cross that border, and you're a filmmaker yourself. It's basically the whole industry is you interact with all the time, which is something I consciously didn't do when I was writing reviews. I sort of stayed away from talking to
which is
industry.
something I have to give you. Your reviews really said it like it is. You didn't mince any words, Karan Anshuman.
Well,
And I'm sure you made a few enemies, but you definitely made a few fans, and I'm one of them. I mean, great stuff.
yeah, I was hoping that the truth will sort of come through, and people who don't get offended and just see it for what it is will be okay with what I'm doing, and honesty pays, I guess. But in the meantime, I'm just working on a lot of interesting stuff, like shows for Amazon, for example. We just wrapped up shooting a really cool, I like to call it a hinterland western gangster drama with lots of drugs, gore, and lots of action, like we've never seen before. It's called Mirzapur. It's going to be on Amazon later this year.
Actually, hold on a second. This calls for a separate sentence. Come back to Mirzapur, come back to Inside Edge, which a lot of you did enjoy. Karan Anshuman in studio. Jax Jones, Breathe, 38 minutes past 9. And Karan Anshuman, writer, filmmaker, movie critic, is in studio. Kashmirnama, his Edge of the Sea thriller, is out in stores. Great book. I highly suggest you go and pick it up. And we're talking to him about his diverse career, both as a filmmaker and as a writer. And for those of you who are not driving, we're going live on Instagram now at HRISHIKAY, streaming live video. And of course, audio across the nation online on www.onecast.in. That's numeral 1cast.in. And 94.3 Radio 1 on your radio sets.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
So, man, an Amazon Prime original, Mirzapur. Is it a movie or is it a series? How many parts would that be?
No, it's a series. It's a similar length as Inside Edge. It's
Which would be how many episodes?
it'll be 9 or 10 episodes. But
And these are 40 minutes each,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And tell me a little more. So it sounds like your version of the Gangs of Wasipur.
it is definitely in that milieu. In fact, I recently met Anurag, and he was like, I don't think he looked very happy. Like, he was like, you're stepping into my territory. I'm like, isn't that the whole idea of Gangs of Wasipur? Like, so.
You could argue everybody's stepping on everybody's territory.
Yeah,
I mean, you could say he has stepped on Scorsese's territory. Yeah, but that's
No,
life.
so I said,
That's life in music and art.
I said, I'll give him a thank you. But the idea was to, do the stuff that he's doing on cinema. Not only him, but also like Vishal Bharadwaj and Omkara,
Sure.
and these kind of films. But go the distance, like where cinema does not allow you, where the censor board does not allow you to, and have people have their heads blow up on screen, have a lot of blood, have things, flesh and bone and bits like in your face, and that's what I really wanted to, I guess pull a Tarantino in a very very Indian Desi sort of way. And that's where Mirzapur came about with my collaborators, Puneet, Krishna, who's co-created the show with me, and Gurmeet Singh, who's co-directed it with me.
And you had a very interesting cast in Inside Edge. Can we expect something like that in Mirzapur? So who have you cast? Are you in a position to talk about that right now?
I think so. So our cast is really, really exciting for Mirzapur. We have Pankaj Tripathi, who's
Lovely.
a gangster. There are there's Ali Fazal, Vikrant Masi, Rasika Duggal, Shreya Pilgaonkar, Shweta Tripathi, and Divyendu Sharma.
Wow.
So that's the kind of cast we have.
Wow.
It's real power.
Yeah, I love all these actors. I mean, I couldn't get enough of Vikrant in Coco's film, which was Death in the Ganj.
Yeah, what a fab film that was.
Fab film that was. And, Shweta's perennially playing a 16-year-old, even though she's much older. Is she doing that in your film too?
Well, they are in college, all of them.
Yeah.
But they grow up really quick.
I can imagine. And Ali, who I was pulling his leg the other day, saying he's become a bona fide Hollywood star after Victoria and Abdul, and because he didn't even come into the Fukre gang. So I said, you owe me an interview, and he's promised to do that very, very soon.
Ali's really, really done a fab
Lovely
job.
guy, man.
And he's done something really outstanding in this show, and I really want the world to see this side of him, which they haven't yet.
Super, perfect excuse to get the cast and you back into studio. So when can we expect a launch date? When are you looking at it to go?
That'll be in the last quarter of the year.
Last quarter of the year. Having said that, Madhavan was in talking about Breathe along with Amit Saad. And he was talking about, exactly what you're saying, which is the fact that, here's an 8-episoder which allows you to, expand the ambit of your existing performance. And he was saying that initially he was a little skeptical, because for a mainstream guy, shouldn't I, this, that. Are you finding that with a few actors, or are most of the people you're approaching turning around saying, wow, man, let's do this? Yeah.
I think that's changing now. Maddie was actually one of the first guys who was into very open to doing a show on the web, and in a big way, because I think all actors realize that they really in cinema you get like 1 or 2 moments. If you're not like Hrithik Roshan, for example, you get 1 or 2 moments in the sun, and you'll really get to explore that and a character or your side of it. But over here, it's there's no start, there's no end. In terms of how your character develops, there's no real setup, there's no conflict, and there's no process to resolve it, and then a sort of resolution and climax at the end. This is like lots of ups and downs, lows and troughs that sort of keeps actors on their toes, and I think that's what they really enjoy. They're longer scenes, and there's more to do. There's every scene that they're in, they are the hero of that scene, and which is not usually the case with film. And I think they're realizing that now, and a lot more actors are sort of opening up to this medium. I mean, for Inside Edge, it was far more difficult for me to find bigger names and actors, but for Mirzapur, it was just a cakewalk.
Wow, so you're saying in a year and a half or 2 years, so much has changed. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, I guess a lot of that has to do with Inside Edge's success also. I mean,
correct.
It's just so widely seen and spoken about that many more actors wanted to get on that.
Tell me about some reactions. I mean, it must be so heartening for someone like yourself to create a cutting edge show like that and get the kind of reaction, and I know that you guys were a little apprehensive in the beginning. Who wouldn't be? Nothing like this had ever been attempted.
Yeah.
Though you did have the might and the muscle of Excel, which is Ritesh Sidhwani and Farhan Akhtar behind you. How have the reactions been, and how have you and the cast reacted, the crew reacted to that?
Well, we had a really large success party, so I guess it was and that it went on all the way till the morning. So I guess we're really thrilled about how Inside Edge has done. I think we're really thrilled about how the market, so to speak, for such shows have responded, which means you can and I just want that one show to be the low benchmark of things to come. It's not about just for my shows, but shows going ahead for that.
The operative word being low benchmark. How sweet. What do you mean is, you can only go up from here.
Yeah, what I mean is, we still adhere to a few things that you do in cinema, like whether it's, I don't want to get too technical, but like the background score, for example. If you want to evolve into the kind of shows that Hollywood is making, and this would be the first step, and there's a few more to be taken till we get there.
Filming season 2, yeah?
Yes, filming season 2 starting in a couple of months.
Nice. Okay, messages and back. You're not going to hear us again for a few minutes, so I'm going to pile up all your messages and read them at the end. So it's one space your comment and name to 53650 on SMS, on Twitter as well as Facebook. Go to the search bar, type HRISHIKAY. It will pop up. You could tweet out your comment or question or post in the timeline inbox along with your name, and facebook.com/radio1.mum. Back for a last leg of conversation with Karan Anshuman. It's 9:46. Don't go anywhere.
94.3 Radio 1.
Wham! I'm your man. Last leg of conversation with Karan Anshuman. He's a writer, filmmaker, movie critic, and he's put out Kashmirnama. What is the Price of Paradise? A riveting novel. I suggest you go and get into your lives. The last leg of conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
Messages. Devraj Singh on Facebook. Good morning, my brother. Another day. Wonderful interview. Thank you very much. Juliana Pereira. I'm glad you're enjoying the interview with Karan Anshuman. Give me a second while I flip pages. Okay, on the Radio 1 page, here we go with Lucky Singh. Thank you. Suparna S. Ghosh. Awesome. Good morning. And Piyush Chaparwal. Good morning. Quickly moving to Twitter. I'm sorry if I can't read out all your messages, but trying to do the best I can. Nilesh Panchal, good morning. Amal, good morning. Manish Chaudhary, glad you're enjoying the interview. Hans Dalal, what's up, buddy? How's it all going? I'm really glad that you're going to be speaking at a forum with Alia. Vandana Trivedi, good morning. Tapiwa Tarisai, I hope I've got your pronunciation right. Good morning. Thank you, all of you. And if I missed out your names, there will always be a next time. So, Karan, for people who've tuned in late, what is Kashmirnama all about in the words of the author?
So Kashmirnama started off as a screenplay I was writing as a film, quickly to realize that this is a sort of controversial topic that would never make it to the screens. Look what's happening, even right now with the whole Padmavat issue for a semi-fictional character and the kind of nonsense that this country has to sort of put up with. So imagine taking a subject like Kashmir and, having a real sort of spin to this political thriller would have been, I don't know, the Karni Sena would be all up in arms for whoever was representing these guys. So I quickly changed tacks, and I was collaborating with my friend Somal Gandhi on the screenplay, and he allowed me to write the novel version of it, and I did that. It was quickly published by Jaico, who are a great publishing company that has really supported me through this. And it is a political thriller with multiple sort of stories that are intertwined. It starts off in 1947 at the scene of the then Maharaja of Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, signing the instrument of accession, that one piece of paper which is basically exceeds Jammu and Kashmir to India. And that one piece of paper is what we sort of have in the last 70 years been holding on to as proof that Kashmir is ours. And the book sort of explores an alternate story, reality that you want to look at, however you want to call it, that what if things were a certain way, and how things, and then we cut to the present in terms of different perspectives from soldiers on top, army brass, from people on ground in Kashmir, the media and how they're looking at it, all represented by characters who go through a journey and change as the sort of novel progresses.
And I have to ask you this. I mean, there are three facets to the Kashmir story. One is, there is this whole pull from Pakistan. There's the Indian side, and there's the average Kashmiri. And for years, for decades, we've been saying, maybe we ought to get a plebiscite and things like that. What does the man on the street, what does the average Kashmiri feel from the little bit that you've spoken to locals about? I mean, you and I are not political analysts, and we don't even want to get there, but what is the feeling that you got on the ground?
Yeah, and this is just a feeling. I don't, definitely, like you said, we are not political analysts. This is just a sense of what you get. Having traveled not only to Kashmir but to other parts of India, is because development in all spheres has been so suppressed in Kashmir, whether it's education, whether it's infrastructure, whatever, especially education, where it's abysmal, the sort of the graduation rate, for example, or the kind of education that is being supported by its state. I find that the average local Kashmiri is not sort of politically tuned in like the way, say, the people in Bihar or UP are, and the nuance is so on the ball, and they have their finger on the pulse. I'm not so sure that's so true about Kashmir, and the aspiration of the average Kashmiri isn't may be misdirected, and a lot of that has to do with their day-to-day life, their interaction with the army, their hopes that have been sort of colored and painted by propaganda. So a lot of that sort of is playing in, and then not really. I don't know. I don't want to make a sweeping generalization, but I don't think that thinking it through in terms of what their political aspirations are.
My last question, what can we expect from season 2 of Inside Edge without giving too much away?
Yeah, so we've just finished writing Inside Edge 2, and it's bigger for one thing. But yeah, Bhai Saab's gonna make an appearance, and I know a lot of people out there are sort of waiting for him.
Who, what, how, Bhai Saab. Buddy, thanks for rolling by. Have a wonderful day ahead and see you soon.
Thank you so much, Hrishi, for this great chat.
That's Karan Anshuman there. Gloria Stefan, get on your feet. I'm Hrishi K.